Look at these farmers. Port of Felixstowe, right now. 50 tractors blocking every entrance. Farmer protests surrounding the port. Been there since dawn. No lorries in, no lorries out. Britain's biggest port completely paralysed. Week 14 of farmer protests. Not stopping at supermarkets anymore. Now blocking ports. Because Starmer refuses to scrap the death tax. And it's working. Port operations stopped. Ships waiting offshore. Can't unload. Lorries stuck for miles. Farmers are shutting down Britain's supply chain. And Starmer's doing nothing. Felixstowe, Saturday morning. Farmers arrived at 5 a.m. Tractors lined up across every gate. Blocking port entrance. Blocking exit. Blocking everything. Port workers arriving for shift. Can't get in. Lorries with cargo. Can't enter. Ships docked. Can't unload. Entire port shut down. Britain's biggest. Handles 40% of container traffic. Stopped. And farmers? Still there, still blocking. Won't move until Starmer scraps the death tax. One farmer at Felixstowe, third generation, farm in Suffolk. He said, Starmer's death tax ends my farm. So we end his ports. Simple. He scraps the tax, we move the tractors. Until then, we stay. That's the determination. Not asking politely anymore. Shutting down critical infrastructure. Because week 14 means farmers tried everything else first. Protested at depots. Blocked supermarkets. Hit Tesco, Morrison's, Lidl. Starmer ignored them, refused to negotiate. Wouldn't even meet. So farmers escalated. Supermarkets to ports. Way bigger target. Way more pressure. If you're watching this shocked that farmers are blocking Britain's biggest port, and Starmer still won't scrap the death tax, hit subscribe right now. Mainstream media barely covering these port protests. They don't want you seeing farmers shut down supply chains. They don't want you knowing Starmer's losing. Subscribe. Turn on notifications. Let's expose what's hiding. And Felixstowe's not alone. Bristol Port, Portbury Docks. Farmer protests blocking it too. M5 motorway, Junction 19. Farmers blocking access. 5-mile tailbacks, complete standstill. Lorries stuck, commuters stuck. Emergency services struggling to get through. Bristol Port paralysed, can't operate. Farmers won't let traffic through. Week 14. Same protests, same blockades, different targets. The Bristol protests started Friday evening. Rush hour maximum disruption. 30 tractors blocking M5 junction. Protesters with signs. Scrap the death tax. Starmer out. Police arrived. Told farmers to move. Farmers refused. Standoff for hours. Traffic backing up for miles. Horns blaring. Chaos. Police couldn't force them. Too many tractors. Too organised. Let them stay. One Bristol farmer explained, "We blocked supermarkets for weeks. Starmer didn't care. Now we block ports, block motorways, make it impossible to ignore. And it's impossible to ignore. M5 gridlocked, port shut down. National news covering it. But it's not just ports. Lidl depots hit too. 3 locations, same day. Peterborough Lidl depot, farmer protests blocking it. Week 3 of this specific site. Doncaster Lidl, protests ongoing, deliveries stopped. Luton Lidl, farmers surrounding entrance, won't let lorries through. 3 Lidl depots, all paralysed. Same day. Coordinated action. The coordination is remarkable, not random protests. Organised strategy. Friday hit Lidl depots, Saturday hit ports, Sunday planning next targets, rotating locations. Spreading pressure, making it impossible for Starmer to respond everywhere. Can't protect every port, can't protect every depot, can't stop coordinated blockades, and public support holding, despite port chaos, despite M5 gridlock. 68% still back farmer protests. Even people stuck in traffic, they understand. Farmers aren't the problem, Starmer's death tax is. One driver stuck on M5, 5 hours in traffic. He said, "Frustrating? Yes. But I support farmers. Starmer created this. He can end it by scrapping the tax. I blame him, not them." That public support gives farmers strength to keep blocking ports and protesting. They're not isolated extremists. They're backed by millions who see Starmer as the problem. Felixstowe port operators begging government for help. "We can't operate. Farmer protests every entrance. Ships waiting. Cargo stuck. Do something." Starmer's response? "We're monitoring." Monitoring, not acting, not scrapping the tax, not negotiating, just watching. While Britain's biggest port sits paralysed. And here's the two-tier part. Just stop oil protesters blocked M25. Got arrested immediately. Injunctions, prison sentences, courts threw the book at them. Farmer protests blocking M5. Police stand back. Let them stay. No arrests. No injunctions against port protests. Different protests. Different treatment. Starmer's two-tier Britain. The Felixstowe protests lasting all weekend. Saturday, Sunday, still there Monday morning. Port workers frustrated. Can't do their jobs. Ships waiting offshore. Cargo delayed. But farmers aren't budging. Week 14. They've proven they can sustain this. Not temporary anger. Sustained, organised resistance. Port manager at Felixstowe told media, "We're losing millions daily. Farmer protests have shut us down completely. Government needs to act. Government needs to act." That's what everyone's saying. Port operators, stuck drivers, business owners, everyone except Starmer. He's monitoring. And farmer protests spreading beyond Felixstowe and Bristol. Rumours of protests planned at Southampton Port, Liverpool Docks, Newcastle Harbour. Farmers threatening to blockade every major port if death tax not scrapped. Show Starmer they can shut down Britain's entire supply chain. Not just food, everything. One farmer organiser explained the strategy. "We tried polite. We tried supermarkets. Starmer ignored us. Now we escalate. Ports, then fuel depots, then power stations if necessary. Whatever it takes until death tax is gone." That's the escalation path. And farmers mean it. Because week 14 proves patience ran out. Tried asking nicely for months before protests even started. Then blocked depots. Starmer ignored. Blocked supermarkets. Starmer ignored. Now blocking ports? What's next if he keeps ignoring? Farmers already said. Fuel depots, power infrastructure, critical systems. The M5 gridlock shows how vulnerable infrastructure is. 30 tractors shut down major motorway for 12 hours. Imagine that at every port, every fuel depot, every power station, simultaneously. That's what Starmer's risking by refusing to negotiate, by refusing to scrap the death tax. Communities near ports supporting farmers despite chaos. Portsmouth residents, Felixstowe locals, Bristol communities, seeing farmer protests up close, understanding why, backing them. One Felixstowe resident, lives near port, traffic chaos all weekend. She said, "Inconvenient, yes, but farmers are desperate. Their farms are ending. Starmer won't listen. So they block ports. I get it. I support them." That's the sentiment allowing farmer protests to continue. Local support, national support, even people affected backing them. If you've made it this far, drop a comment. Should farmers keep blocking ports despite chaos? Should Starmer scrap the death tax immediately? Or should farmers accept the tax and end protests? Comment below. So here's where Britain is right now. Week 14 of farmer protests. Felixstowe port blocked, Bristol port paralysed, M5 gridlocked, 3 Lidl depots shut down, all same weekend, coordinated action. And Starmer? Still refusing to scrap the death tax. Still doing nothing. Port operators begging for help. Drivers stuck in traffic. Ships waiting offshore. Starmer monitoring. That's his strategy. Monitor and wait. Wait for farmers to quit. Wait for public support to collapse. Wait for protests to end. Except farmers aren't quitting. Public support holding. Protests escalating. Next week, more port protests planned. Farmers organising blockades at Southampton, Liverpool, Newcastle. Show national scale. Show they can shut down all ports simultaneously if needed. Make it impossible for Starmer to ignore. And farmers confident they'll win, because they have leverage. Britain needs ports, needs supply chains, needs food delivered. Farmers control that. Block ports and Britain stops functioning. Starmer can monitor all he wants. Can't monitor his way out of empty ports and gridlocked motorways. One farmer at Felixstowe explained, "Starmer thinks we'll get tired, give up, go home. Week 14 says otherwise. We're committed. We'll block ports for months if necessary. Years. However long until death tax is scrapped. And they have the resources, farm equipment, diesel, organisation, community support, can sustain port blockades longer than Starmer can sustain ignoring them. The port protests growing, started 50 tractors Saturday. By Sunday over 80, more farmers joining, word spreading, other counties sending support, Norfolk farmers, Essex farmers, Suffolk farmers, all converging on Felixstowe, making it bigger, making it impossible to clear. Police trying to negotiate, asking farmers to move, promising government will meet with them. Farmers' response? "We don't want meetings, we want the death tax scrapped. Show us legislation removing it. Then we move, not before. Clear demand. No room for negotiation tricks." Bristol protests, same story. Started 30 tractors, now 60. Farmers refusing to leave M5 until death tax is gone. Traffic chaos continuing. Monday morning commute disaster. Thousands stuck, but farmers unmoved. Week 14, they've proven they won't quit over inconvenience. And Lidl Depot protests entering week 3 for Peterborough. Week 2 for others. Sustained blockades, not one-day demonstrations. Permanent presence until death tax scrapped. That's what terrifies Starmer, not temporary anger. Permanent organised resistance. Next weekend. Farmers planning biggest port action yet. All major ports simultaneously. Felixstowe, Bristol, Southampton, Liverpool, Newcastle, Hull. All blockaded same day. Show they can shut down Britain's entire import system. All at once. That's the pressure building, and Starmer still monitoring. Let me know in the comments. Will Starmer scrap the death tax? Will port protests force his hand? Or will this continue for months? Because right now farmers aren't backing down, and Starmer's not scrapping the tax. Something has to break. Ports want to operate. Farmers want their farms. Starmer wants his tax revenue. That's the deadlock. And it's heading toward complete breakdown, because farmers proved something crucial. They can shut down Britain's infrastructure. Not theoretically. Actually, Felixstowe paralyzed proves it. And they'll do it. Completely. Every port. If Starmer forces them. Welcome to Starmer's farming crisis, where Britain's biggest port sits paralyzed, where M5 motorway gridlocks for 12 hours, where farmer protests escalate from supermarkets to critical infrastructure. This is Britain under Keir Starmer, where ports stop operating because he refuses to scrap a tax, where farmers blockade supply chains, where ships wait offshore unable to unload, where the Prime Minister monitors instead of acts. Week 14 of farmer protests. Felixstowe blocked, Bristol paralysed, Lidl depots shut down, and farmers planning bigger actions, more ports, more coordination, more pressure, until Starmer breaks, until the death tax is scrapped, until British farming survives however many weeks, however many port blockades, however many motorway shutdowns. Farmers aren't stopping, won't stop, can't stop, because their farms depend on it, their families depend on it, their entire way of life depends on it. And Starmer? Still monitoring, still refusing, still losing. While Felixstowe sits blocked and Britain's supply chain collapses. The protests continue, the ports stay paralysed, the pressure builds, and something's breaking.